All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome back to another Classic Comics live cast. I want to thank everyone who's going to be listening both during the stream and after on a rewatch. And if you're new here, please do sub to my channel while you're here. I would appreciate it. Uh, First thing I want to do is I want to tout my next video on my channel. I'm doing a video about the upcoming Babylon 5 reboot. And I'm not talking about the animated movie. I've already done a review for that on my channel, but this is the actual full reboot series that J. Michael Straczynski's working on. And basically, I just talk about what I think this new series might be about and how it might differ from what we've seen before, because JMS has said that it will be different. And I also look at his original plan for Babylon 5, which is significantly different from the show we wound up getting, and try to gain some insight from that as to what he might be planning. I meant to have that out earlier today, but I don't know. Something went wrong with the upload and it dropped, so I had to start over again. It's uploading right now. So I don't know. There might be some lag in the stream from that. I'm not sure. I hope not, but I don't know. If it gets to be a big problem, I may end the stream early. We'll see. All right. So I've really gone on about Disney a lot the last few weeks. So we're going to focus more on some DC stuff. First of all, of course, Blue Beetle opened a week ago. Seems like longer, doesn't it? I mean, it seems like it's already a distant memory from when that was in theaters, but nobody's talking about it. Nobody seems to care. But I'll talk about that and how that is faring at the box office. Spoiler, not good. What else? We'll talk about James Gunn maybe casting Chris Pratt in a DCU role. Matt Reeves is going to be planning his own Batverse that will kind of coexist with the DCU, with Gunn's DCU. And and we're, of course, the first installment of that will be the Penguin Show, which we're all looking forward to, right? Everyone's hyped for a Penguin Show. There's also some rumors about David Cornsweet's Superman suit. I'll also talk about the Aquaman endless reshoots and what they're playing with that. Also, Warner Brothers Discovery has delayed Dune. Dune has been pushed back to 2024 because I'm assuming because of the writer strike, they don't have the actors available to hype the show. And I guess they're anticipating that this will go into, when is that, November when that is out? So they're not looking at this to end soon. Looks like they're not going to delay Aquaman, though. Aquaman's still going to come out in December, so I don't know. I'm guessing maybe they're just writing it off and figuring it's going to be a loss no matter what at this point. I mean, considering what's happened with their other DC hero movies this year, I don't really blame them. It's been a mess. And beyond that, no, just kind of a grab bag of different items. Mark Millar, the comic book writer, of course, has a plan to save comics. I'll talk a little about that. Margot Robbie may be coming back to play Harley Quinn again. And of course, if you may have heard, Arlene Sorkin, the actress who originally played Harley Quinn and who was the inspiration for the character, actually, she died recently, which is sad to hear. We'll talk about her a little bit. And CBR.com got hacked. Their social media got hacked. And maybe a couple other things too, if we have time. So let's go ahead and jump into this. See, what do I want to do first? We'll talk about Blue Beetle first, if I can find. If I can find. Oh, there it is. Was that it? Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah, okay. And this is from the direct.com. Let me bring this up. Come on. All right. So Warner Brothers suffers worst ever DC EU superhero box office opening overseas. Uh, Blue Beetle has faced the lowest ever overseas box office opening in the DC extended universe. The DCEU has been having a tough run at the box office, with the latest movie, The Flash, being one of the biggest flops in Hollywood history. The blockbuster came as the third miss in a row for the DCEU after Black Adam and Shazam Fury of the Gods suffered a similarly disappointing fate for Warner Brothers Discovery. Going into Blue Beetle, the penultimate movie to come from the old DC regime ahead of Aquaman 2, history was projected to repeat itself, with analysts expecting a 12 to 17 million domestic opening. According to the box office expert Luis Fernando, the Warner Brothers distributed Blue Beetle suffered the worst ever opening for a DCEU movie overseas, with an estimated 18 million across 61 markets in its first 5 days, coming in even below the disastrous Shazam Fury of the Gods and the pandemic release of Wonder Woman 1984. Ouch. Warner Brothers' latest DC movie was topped up by a $25 million domestic debut, bringing the worldwide total for Blue Beetle's opening to 43.4 million worldwide. Of the international opening, 2.1 million came from Brazil, and 2.7 million from Mexico, where many expected the movie to find success due to its Latin focus. I blame racism. The international opening set a new low for the DCEU, taking in less than Shazam 2's 34.6 million over 77 markets and Wonder Woman 1984's 38.5 million across just 39 markets at reduced capacity due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Comparing Blue Beetle to other recent DC releases, The Flash opened with 75 million internationally across 78 markets, and Black Adam took in 75.9 million from its 76 non-domestic territories. Warner Brothers' potential losses on Blue Beetle will be mitigated by its low production budget, which was approximately 104 million, making the film one of the DCEU's cheapest next to 2019 Shazam and 2020's Birds of Prey. James Gunn declared that Xolo Maridueña's Blue Beetle is the first DCU character, indicating he will be sticking around after the upcoming reboot. So one has to wonder whether this will remain the case now that his debut movie has failed to attract much attention from audiences, as the one condition for Blue Beetle 2 to happen ahead of the first movie's release was for it to, quote, make money, unquote. Yeah, about that. The chances of a sequel now appear slim, but that doesn't necessarily doom the chances of Jaime Reyes finding his way into the new universe, even if that only comes through other characters' projects. Yeah, I mean, they could use him as like a cameo or a guest character or something. Then again, maybe the character will have a stronger chance once the reboot has taken place. Many of DC's latest movies seem to be suffering due to the promise of an impending reboot, essentially meaning these stories simply won't matter in the long run, as they will all be erased after this year. DC suffering its fourth disappointment in a row only spells trouble for its final movie of the year, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Expectations were already low for the Jason Momoa sequel, but its odds of success now feel even lower, despite its predecessor having turned over 1 billion. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and talk about that Aquaman movie here. Give me a moment. Now, as far as Blue Beetle goes, I mean, it's unfortunate. I like the Jaime Reyes character. And I mean, overall, I mean, the movie is not it's not terrible, you know. It's not a terrible movie. It's just, first of all, I think is that there's just a real sense of, you've seen this before. You know, I talked about that in my review. The plot feels very much like the plot to the first Ant-Man movie in a lot of ways. And then there's also the issue of it just the way they include the family in the story. I mean, it's nice that he has a family, and I like the family for the most part. But when they pack up in Blue Beetle's airship and go off to rescue him, and his family is the one who are storming the bad guy's hideout, and they're killing people left and right. It feels like Spy Kids or something. It just gets a little goofy. And what else? And also the villains, as I said in my review, the villains are just really bland. The villains just aren't very interesting or compelling. I mean, you don't even hate them, they're not even hateable. And that's on top of the whole, the movie's pushing Marxism and pretty hard. And I wasn't thrilled with that. But yeah, it's unfortunate that the movie didn't do better. But and another thing, as I've said before, I think that there have been so many disappointing DC movies. I think the brand is just damaged at this point. And any DC movie, particularly, nothing's really going to succeed before that reboot, because everybody's waiting for that Superman movie. And anything between now and then, people are probably just going to shrug off. And I tell you what, if Superman Legacy bombs, man, they're going to be in trouble. All right, so let's talk about Aquaman. Let me bring this one up. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. All right, Warner Brothers quest to build a better Aquaman sequel. 3 reshoots, 2 Batmans, and nonstop test screenings. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is in uncharted waters, with the next several weeks potentially setting its course for good or ill. Sequel to Warner Brothers' 2018 DC movie is coming off a round of reshoots that occurred in New Zealand in mid-June and involves stars including Jason Momoa and Patrick Wilson, according to multiple sources. This is the 3rd round of reshoots for the movie, directed by James Wan. That is almost an unprecedented number, even for a movie of this scale. And oh, hey, Lord Thoth. Hey, man, thanks for stopping by. Good to see you, sir, as always. Let's see. And I know, and by the way, I think I heard, didn't he go to the hospital for something? I mean, supposedly it was, people were saying it was because of the movie, like stress or something, but then it turned out it was something else. I don't know. I just heard something about that. I haven't looked into it. All right. So Lost Kingdom has faced several headwinds as it swims toward a December 20th release date. It was postponed several times. Originally was due to bow in December 2020, and like its DC movie brother, The Flash, its making has now spanned 3 regimes at Warner Brothers. The movie was greenlit under the Warner's regime led by former film boss Toby Emmerich and his lieutenant, DC Films head Walter Hamada, as the sequel to Aquaman, which proved to be a surprise hit and stands as the highest grossing DC movie of all time with $1.148 billion. Principal photography wrapped in January 2020. And actually, I think this was done in July 19th. So I think Barbie's now the top Warner Brothers movie, isn't it? That's what I've heard. Okay, so principal photography wrapped in January 2020, but by summer, Emmerich was out and Hamada soon followed, both casualties of the merger that created Warner Brothers Discovery. The movie was in the middle of post-production and beginning test screenings that summer. While a timeline is not clear, from summer 2020 to the beginning of 2023, The Lost Kingdom underwent 2 rounds of reshoots and held several uninspiring test screenings. After 1 round of test screenings, new Warner Brothers film bosses Michael DeLuca and Pamela Abdy got involved, as they were running point on DC until Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav could find a permanent DC boss to replace Hamada. Sources say that in the fall, Abdi took a strong creative stance and got involved in the editing of 1 cut. However, when that version tested, it scored lower than the previous version. That led to another round of reshoots. Different visions of executives notwithstanding, it is unclear what the problems were, but one insider said the issue of story clarity has been an ongoing concern. Also a concern, Batman. Hamada wanted Michael Keaton's version of the character to be akin to Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury in the Marvel movies, an elder statesman who could pop up in various films, including the now shelved Batgirl, as well as The Lost Kingdom. But shifting release dates muddled things. At one point, The Lost Kingdom was set to open in March of 2023. several months before Keaton's return in June 2023's The Flash. So in late July 2022, 2 months after Abdi and DeLuca took over Warner's, Ben Affleck joined a round of reshoots as Bruce Wayne to replace a scene Keaton shot. But then the movie was moved again, this time to After Flash, putting Affleck's appearance in question. The latest cut of the film features neither version of The Dark Knight, according to sources, as new DC heads James Gunn and Peter Safran do not want to promise a movie universe that will not come to fruition nor tie it down excessively to past failures. It was pretty chaotic, said one source. Yeah, I'll bet. And some of the chaos may not have been the studio's or filmmakers' fault. Some of the calendar moves were due to overloaded visual effects houses, a phenomenon that occurred during the pandemic and that affected both Flash and Lost Kingdom, causing a cascade of release date pushes. More test screenings of cuts occurred in February and again in April. By this time, Safran, a producer on the first Aquaman as well as The Lost Kingdom, had become co head of the newly created DC studios along with Gunn. It is unclear how Safran's transition shifted the movie's fortunes, if at all. Insiders say that the filmmakers were in the dumps over the seemingly never ending post production process and waterlogged test scores. However, the skis may have cleared with the new reshoots. Gunn is said to have weighed in on the most recent cut, and the leadership approved a 5-day shoot. Sources say the shoot went so well that Wan and company completed what they needed in only 4. Hooray, the movie is saved. And to some, the fact that Warner's is willing to keep spending money to make the film better shows that the studio has faith in the Lost Kingdom. In February, according to sources, the filmmakers of Blue Beetle and other remaining DC movies that was made during the AT&T era and comes out in August asked for and received 2 days of additional shooting. Safran has also been a producer on Beetle before his ascension to the executive ranks. Lost Kingdom is already an expensive production. It was greenlit at a $205 million budget and shot during the pandemic, which was a burdensome expense on tentpole productions. Additionally, every frame of the movie involves visual effects, another major cost. The reshoots have only raised that overall budget. Lost Kingdom is the final movie of the DC Extended Universe, which launched a decade ago with Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. Wow, has it been 10 years? Yeah, hard to believe. Its December release date approaches as Warner DC movies are flopping at an unmatched level. October's Black Adam, March's Shazam Fury of the Gods, and last month's The Flash were money losers in their theatrical runs. And of course, again, this was written in July, so this isn't including Blue Beetle. Though Gunn and Safran plan on rebooting DC films with Superman Legacy, that title won't be out until July 2025. No one wants another miss, and there are questions as to how much bruising the DC movie brand can take. The filmmakers in studio know the value that smart post production can bring. The first Aquaman was also facing turbulent waves and is said to have found its footing only in post when a new ending was burnished and the movie tightened to a zippier 2 hours and 23 minutes. As for Juan, he was upbeat when he spoke to THR in April as he continued to work on the film. Quote, "This movie has something to talk about, climate change, but it's still a fun action fantasy movie," unquote. All right. So, yeah, I mean, do any of us expect this movie to be a hit? I doubt it. I mean, maybe they can salvage something. Maybe it can come out and at least only lose a little money for them and not lose a crap ton of money the way The Flash and these other ones have. But I think the movie just has so much going against it. You know, there's the issue of this is from a DC universe that is now defunct, basically, and doesn't really have any future to it. There's the whole Amber Heard issue of her being in the movie, and Lord Thoth says it will flop. Yeah, yeah, you're probably right. There probably is no escaping it. Probably no avoiding it. It is your destiny to flop. But I mean, I like Aquaman. Aquaman's one of my favorite characters, actually. And I'm not going to pretend the first movie is an Oscar winner, but I enjoyed it. I liked it, and I would like to see Aquaman do well. But yeah, there's probably What I need, what's a good see? The tides are against it. Yeah, that sounds good. All right. Now, speaking of delaying, one thing is they're not, as they mentioned, they're not delaying this movie. They are delaying some of their movies, including Dune. That is getting pushed back. And let's see where I had an article on that. Where is that? Here it is. Yeah, this is from superherohype.com. Bring this up. All right. Dune Part 2 delayed to 2024. Aquaman 2 stays put. Warner Brothers Pictures has delayed a number of its upcoming films, including the highly anticipated Dune Part 2. According to Deadline, Warner Brothers has delayed Dune Part 2 from November 3rd, 2023 to March 15th, 2024. Additionally, Godzilla, Godzilla and Kong. I know it's Godzilla X Kong. How do you say that? Is that versus? I don't know. Anyway, that has moved from March 15th, 2024 to April 12th, 2024. Finally, the animated feature Lord of the Rings The War of the Rohirrim has been delayed a whopping 8 months from April 12th, 2024 to December 13th, 2024. That being said, with the exception of Dune Part 2, all of Warner Brothers Pictures' late 2023 tentpoles are staying put. Wonka, starring Dune lead Timothy Chalamet, is still due to hit theaters later this year on December 15th. Similarly, DC's Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is still coming out on December 20th, while The Color Purple is set for December 25th. I keep forgetting they're doing that color purple uh, remake. Uh, yeah, Thoth, it is too bad about Dune. I mean, I'm assuming that they're pushing it back because with the strikes, they don't have the cast available to do, press junkets and to hype the movie and help sell it. And which means they anticipate this movie going into, or I'm sorry, this strike lasting into November at least, probably through to the end of the year, I would guess. And, that's why they're pushing it back. I do think it's interesting that, of course, that they're not pushing Aquaman back. Of course, maybe part of the reason that it's been pushed back so many times, they're just like, screw this movie. Let's just get this thing out and let's just get it over with like a tumor. Let's just get it out. And yeah, I mean, because it's hard to believe they have that much confidence in it, but we'll see. All right. Aquaman 2 is keeping its December release date. Is somewhat surprising as it was previously reported that the superhero sequel could be moved again in the likely event of Dune Part Two's delay. Director Denis Villeneuve's Dune released in theaters and on HBO Max in October of 2021, adapting the first half of the 1965 sci-fi novel of the same name by Frank Herbert. Shortly after the film's release, Warner Brothers and Legendary Entertainment greenlit a sequel, which would adapt the second half of the book. Dune Part 2 was originally dated for October 20th, 2023. It was subsequently delayed to November 17th before being bumped to November 3rd. Villeneuve was also discussed the possibility of making a third film, which would be based on Frank Herbert's 1969 sequel novel Dune Messiah. At any rate, a spin-off prequel series titled Dune: The Sisterhood is also in the works for the streaming platform now known simply as Max. Set 10,000 years before the events of Dune, The Sisterhood is based on the 2012 novel Sisterhood of Dune by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. And I believe that one, I have not read that one. I've read several Dune novels, but I haven't read that one. And I believe that one's about it's the origin of the Bene Gesserit, basically. Tells about the creation of the Bene Gesserit and their whole, how they come to create the whole breeding program to create the Kwisatz Haderach and all that. Meanwhile, James Wan's Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom serves as a sequel to the 2018 DC Extended Universe film Aquaman. Lost Kingdom was originally dated for December 16, 2022, before being delayed to March 17, 2023. It was then delayed again to December 25, 2023, before being bumped up to December 20th. The film serves as the symbolic end of the DCEU, which will soon be formally rebooted as the DC Universe. And I do hope that Villeneuve will get to do the third movie based on Dune Messiah, because it does sort of round out Paul Atreides' story in a pretty effective way. Although honestly, I've long felt that Dune itself would actually work very well as as a trilogy of films, because the book has a pretty clear 3-act structure where you could do just a trilogy, kind of like with Lord of the Rings, which was originally supposed to be a single book. It was published in separate parts because the publisher was like, well, because if I remember right, the reasoning was, this was in the 1950s in over in the UK, and the economy was still quite a mess from World War II and whatnot, and a lot of things were still being rationed, and a lot of things were still very pricey, and particularly paper. And the publisher said, look, we can do, because Tolkien wanted it as a single volume, and the publisher said, look, we can do this as a single book, but it'll be so expensive nobody's going to buy it. So they broke it up into 3 parts. And like I say, Dune has a pretty clear 3-act structure. Book one basically is from the beginning to the downfall of House Atreides and the death of Leto, and Paul and Jessica. You could end with Paul and Jessica, fleeing into the desert and being found by the Fremen, which is kind of what happens in the first novel. But they skip a lot of stuff, or sorry, in Villeneuve's movie, but they do skip quite a bit. Which, if you weren't doing 2 movies, you could have done more of the story, and some of it's being pushed back into the second movie, like in the book. Fade Routha, for example, he's a character that actually appears earlier in the book, but they moved some of that stuff to the second movie. And then you'd have the middle where he'd be out there in the desert with the Fremen, getting assimilated into their culture, learning their ways, and then eventually that could end with him drinking the water of life and embracing the whole Kwisatz Haderach Messiah role, and then launching the insurrection or uprising against the Harkonnens, and then the third book would kind of go from there to the end. All right. So what else I want to do next? Okay, so let's talk about Margot Robbie a little. So as you may have heard, Barbie is a big hit, and apparently because it's been so successful, there are now rumors that she may be coming back to play Harley Quinn again, or at least Warner Brothers would like her to come back and play Harley Quinn again. Um, I wonder if it's going to happen, because I mean, she is going to want so much money to do this again. I mean, I don't know what they paid her before, but you can probably triple it now, at least. So, a major name at DC Comics teased that Margot Robbie might not be done playing Harley Quinn as the DCU looks to its new era. And this is from the direct.com, by the way. Robbie boasts as many appearances in the greater DC universe as almost anybody, having last played her iconic role in 2021 Suicide Squad under writer director James Gunn. Since that time, Gunn took over as co-CEO of the newly formed DC Studios, announcing an entirely new slate of projects that will start a brand new era of DC storytelling in theaters and on Max, with some characters confirmed to be recast. DC Comics writer Jim Palmiotti teased on Twitter that Margot Robbie may not be on her way back to the DC universe in the near future as Harley Quinn. Sharing a GIF or however you pronounce it, of Robbie modeling for a photo shoot in her costume from the Suicide Squad, Palmiotti praised, quote, everything James Gunn has brought to the movies, unquote, while also hinting that, quote, great things are coming. And they have the tweet here. Listen, guys, I love everything James Gunn has brought to the movies. Always fun, always unpredictable, and always that edge of humor and fun that Amanda and I enjoy. The man loves the material, and you can see it on display in everything he touches. Great things are coming. I don't know. Is that? I mean, that's pretty obtuse or vague as a tease about her coming back. But and if you're wondering who Paul Miotti is, he is a DC Comics writer, and he and Amanda Connor, who is his wife and is an artist, they did a run on Harley back in I think it was the 2000s. Um, and like in the 2000s, early 20 teens, and it's pretty well regarded, I guess. Currently, the only project that will feature Harley Quinn will come with Lady Gaga's portrayal in Joker Folie à Deux, or Folie à Deux, however you say it, with Robbie having commented in 2022 that the Grammy winner is going to do an amazing job, unquote. James Gunn also debunked a rumor in April pertaining to a prequel series being in development for Robbie's Harley Quinn, which is said to focus on, quote, the story of how her need to say the Joker led her mind being shattered, unquote. It's been quite clear over the last few years that Gunn thinks highly of Robbie's portrayal of Harley Quinn, with the DC Studios co-CEO telling a fan in March that Robbie would, quote, for sure work with him again on a new project. And while there are no specific projects that seem to be a natural fit for Robbie in Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters, Gunn did confirm that more than half of the entire slate remains under wraps, which could include a Harley Quinn return. It's still unclear exactly which recent DC projects will be considered canon under Gunn's new DCU, specifically looking at entries like Peacemaker and Blue Beetle, with Harley Quinn working so closely alongside Peacemaker in the Suicide Squad. But whether she plays the same version of the character from past movies or a new take on the anti heroine, even with rumors about her being in talks to star in Marvel Studios' Fantastic Four, that ain't happening. I don't believe that. The door is still open for her to stick with the blue brand. So I don't know. I mean, that's really not even a tease. That's just sort of a vague suggestion. So I don't know. I'll be surprised if she comes back because, like I say, she's going to want a ton of money. And I think part of the reason, not the entire reason, but I think part of the reason why Gunn and Safran wanted to move on from the Snyderverse versions of the characters is that the actors were going to demand so much per film. Cavill was going to be getting something like, you know, probably 25 to 30 million, supposedly. Gadot, if she had done Wonder Woman 3, she would have been getting somewhere in the realm of probably around 20 to 30 million, something like that. Robbie, she would surely want at least that much now. Now, speaking of Harley Quinn, as some of you may have heard, and this is sad, but Arlene Sorkin, who is the actress who originally portrayed the character, and actually the character was modeled or inspired by her, and she died recently, a few days ago. So I thought I'd just go over some of her Wikipedia and talk about her a little bit. So, and because be honestly, I don't know a whole lot about her beyond the fact that she played Harley Quinn. But let's take a look here. So, Arlene Sorkin, an American actress, screenwriter, television presenter, and comedian. Sorkin is known for portraying Calliope Jones on the NBC daytime serial Days of Our Lives, and for serving as the real life inspiration and voice for DC Comics villain Harley Quinn, co created by her friend Paul Dini on Batman the Animated Series. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to go ahead and skip down here. So, the character of Harley Quinn was based on her alongside providing the voice after her college friend Paul Dini saw her play a jester in a dream sequence on soap opera Days of Our Lives. Then Dini based Harley Quinn on Sorkin, incorporating aspects such as her mannerisms and very snappy, wisecracking, bubbly blonde personality. In recording Harley Quinn's voice, Sorkin spoke in her normal Brooklyn accent while putting in a little Yiddish sound, since Dini made the character Jewish, another aspect of the character borrowed from Sorkin. Harley Quinn made her first appearance in the Batman the Animated Series episode Joker's Favor, originally intended to appear in a single episode, but reaction to the character and Sorkin's voice performance was positive, so Quinn was written into the show regularly and appeared in further DC animated universe series, including the new Batman Adventures, Static Shock, Justice League, Gotham Girls, and the animated film Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. After the video game DC Universe Online, Sorkin retired from voicing Harley Quinn and did not reprise her role in any subsequent DC projects. Sorkin married writer producer Christopher Lloyd, and that's not the actor Christopher Lloyd, just so you know. I checked. In 1995, with whom she had two sons, Eli and Owen. Arlene Sorkin died on August 24th, 2023, at the age of 67. Not that old. Too bad. But it's she's gonna live forever in a way through that character. So, though she's gone, in a way she's not gone. All right. What else we got? Some other Okay, we'll do this. So James Gunn apparently has maybe teased Chris Pratt playing a DC role. So this is again from the direct.com. James Gunn just teased Chris Pratt's role in new DC superhero universe. All right, James Gunn hasn't been quiet about wanting to work with members of the Guardians of the Galaxy cast in his new DCU, and further alluded to this in a new social media post. So far, a few Guardians actors have been confirmed in DC roles, such as Maria Bakalova as Cosmo, who played Cosmo in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, playing Princess Ilana Rostovich in Creature Commandos, and Nathan Fillion playing Guy Gardner in Superman Legacy. In addition, both Chris Pratt and Pom Klementieff have both teased involvement in the rebooted DC universe in some capacity, with Pratt saying he would do it if asked, and Clementis speaking to conversations she had about it. Since these teases, much fan speculation has occurred about what their involvement could look like. In response to a fan post on Threads, DC Studios co CEO James Gunn indicated that both Chris Pratt and Pom Klementieff could have roles in his rebooted DCU. User Airy85 posted about wanting Pratt or Clemente to appear in the second season of Peacemaker as themselves. Gunn responded explaining that there are reasons he would not want Pratt to play himself in the rebooted DC universe. This is obviously not a casting announcement or anything close to such. However, it is an indication that Gunn may have plans to cast Chris Pratt in a notable DCU role, as of which would be impeded on by him appearing in universe as Chris Pratt. If nothing else, it implies the director is at least considering the possibility. Interestingly, Gunn is not against one actor playing multiple characters within a single universe. Sean Gunn often plays voices or offers motion capture work for several characters within a movie, and Nathan Fillion played a different character in each of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. However, in both those situations, the roles played either hid the face of the actor in question or appear only briefly in more of a cameo setting. As such, it would not be too far off to figure that Gunn not wanting Pratt or Clemente to cameo as themselves implies wanting him to save them for something bigger. This can mean a significant role in a single project or a smaller role in multiple projects. If either actor appeared as themselves before debuting in their actual role, it would break continuity in a capacity that is harder to overlook than it would if one actor had multiple cameos as different roles. But for all fans know, these reasons could be completely unrelated. The response was vague, leaving open several possible interpretations. The new DCU officially kicks off with Creature Commandos coming in 2024. Yeah, I mean, I expect him to be in it. My guess would be that he's going to wind up playing Booster Gold, if I had to guess. I suppose there are possibilities. I mean, I think there was a time when he would have been a good Hal Jordan, but I think he's up around 40 now, so I think he's getting a little too old for the role at this point. Aside from that, I'm not sure. I mean, there are not a whole bunch of other characters that just scream Chris Pratt to me. I mean, I'm sure there are others he'd be fine in. Okay, now speaking of DC heroes, let's talk about Superman a little bit. Apparently, there are rumors about what his costume is going to look like, and this is from ScreenRant.com. Superman Legacy's new costume, teased by director, reveals hundreds of designs have been made. James Gunn has confirmed that Superman's new costume for Superman Legacy has gone through a huge number of designs. The new DC universe is coming in a few years as Gunn and Peter Safran are working on multiple DC Studios projects, with Superman Legacy set to be the first proper Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters movie. David Cornsweet has been cast to portray the latest live action iteration of Krypton's last son, with filming on Superman Legacy currently eyeing a production start in 2024. Of course, that probably depends on how long the strike goes on. While things have slowed down a bit due to the Writers Guild of America and SAG-AFTRA strikes, it hasn't stopped fans from speculating how Gunn is approaching the DC icon through Superman Legacy. Like many past Superman projects, the big question is how Corrin Sweat's new DCU Superman costume and Superman Legacy will be handled. Over on Threads, a user named @GetSnart stated that while they are aware Gunn is considering designs without trunks, they believe that he will, quote, find pretty quickly that trunks work best, unquote. Gunn responded saying that they have, quote, done hundreds of designs and that it is most definitely not that simple, hinting that they likely have still not decided on a particular version. While it will be some time before fans get to see the costume in Superman Legacy, it still begs the question if Corrin Sweat's iteration will have trunks at all. To this point, Gunn has continued to be very cryptic about whether or not they are incorporating the trunks for this new take on Superman. For the longest time, Superman's trunks have been a heated debate, as many think his suit needs to have them, while others believe they aren't needed. And if Gunn ends up having Corrin Sweat's costume go without the trunks, it's not like Superman Legacy's success will depend on it. Don't be so sure. I mean, I'm not, yeah, it won't depend on that alone, but I think that could play a bigger role than you might think. What is more important for Superman Legacy at the end of the day is that it can set a proper foundation for the new DC universe. It would be fun, however, if there are flashbacks of Clark having a prototype suit as Superman before he has a suit in the present time without them, similarly to how they did it on Superman and Lois. Time will tell how the costume designer for Superman Legacy will adapt the suit for this new live action franchise. Hopefully, Superman's production start is still on track for early 2024. DC Studios will release an official photo of Corn Sweat in the suit before it gets spotted through set photos. But for now, the world will have to wait patiently for more details, including how the Man of Steel's costume will look in this incarnation. So, I mean, for me personally, I mean, I'm fine either way. I mean, I'm fine with the trunks if they have them. You know, I used to be a really big sort of like, yes, trunks, it can't be changed. It has to be, you know, it has to be the trunks. You can't mess with the costume. I've kind of lightened on that over the years, and I'm okay with a trunkless version, depending on how they do it. As some have noted, you know, when you take away the trunks, you have to make some other alterations with the suit, I think, in order to make up for the lack of red in the suit. But like I say, I'm okay with it either way. But I'm not sure a lot of people will be. So I don't know. I think maybe whether it has trunks or not might be a bigger part of how successful it is than people want to realize. Let's see what else here. Okay. Uh, so Matt Reeves. Let me bring this one up. Apparently, Matt Reeves is going to be doing more Batman related stuff. DC and Matt Reeves's Batverse to be developed as separate entities. And this is from IGN.com. The Batman director Matt Reeves is soon meeting with co-CEOs of DC Studios James Gunn and Peter Safran to discuss how their two universes, the DCU and what's now dubbed the Batverse, will be developed alongside each other. Speaking to Collider, Reeves confirmed that the Batverse, led by the Batman starring Robert Pattinson, would become its own universe separate to the reworks currently happening at DC under its new leadership. Gunn and Safran have been great, Reeves said. We're actually supposed to meet in the next few weeks because they want to talk to me about the broad plan and then they want to hear the Batverse plan. We're just getting together to talk about all of that. Look, I'm excited to hear what they're going to do. The Batverse thing, as James has said, and as Peter has said, is kind of its own thing they're letting us do. The meeting will essentially ensure the two universes don't overlap, Reeves said, as Batman will presumably turn up in Gunn and Safran's DCU too. They're going to be talking to me about what they're doing in their 10-year plan, or certainly what's in the near future, as well as what we can understand that we're not. It's air traffic control. We don't want to be crashing into each other, Reeves added. We want to support each other. Very little is known about the new DCU so far, though the 10-year plan is complete. Gunn has confirmed that a young Superman movie is on the way and has said previously that the character is a huge priority for DC Studios going forward. The Batverse, on the other hand, is already in full swing despite just a single film being released. At least 3 spin-off shows are reportedly in development, the first of which is focused on Colin Farrell's Penguin and begins production in February. I'm sorry, I can't help laughing at a Penguin show. I mean, who wants a Penguin show? Ugh, okay. What began as a Gotham PD centric show also evolved into a horror like series about Arkham, but both concepts are now reportedly in development as different projects. A full film sequel is also in the works, and the cast and crew of the Batman have shared what they'd like to explore in it. Patton, Pattinson himself wants to take on the Court of Owls saga, while director Matt Reeves hopes to bring Mr. Freeze to his dark and gritty Batman universe. These are seemingly just the beginning of the much larger Batverse, though, as Reeves is reportedly in talks with other directors and writers to create films based on Batman villains, including Scarecrow, Clayface, and Professor Pig. Yeah, we all want a Professor Pig movie. What the hell? Why? Why are you doing all this stuff with the villains? Why can't we get a damn Nightwing movie, or even just a good Nightwing show? Oh, Jesus, this is so annoying. I mean, Professor, who the hell wants a Professor Pig movie? Nobody. I mean, they deserve to lose money. I swear, oh, these people are so stupid. Yeah, yeah, Ugg is right. Yeah. Lord Thaw says just a good Batman show. Yeah. I mean that would be nice, but it's pretty clear they consider Batman a movie property now and not a TV property. I guess because they figure that's where more money can be made, which is unfortunate because Batman could work really well, as like I mean, he was a detective originally, right? That would work fine. But I wouldn't hold my breath on that happening, but you could at least do shows on the characters around Batman, like Nightwing, or Batgirl. Um, uh, but no, we're getting a Professor Pig movie or in a Penguin show. I mean, who gives a f about Professor Pig? God. All right, where am I at here? Okay, so I got about 10 minutes to hit an hour, so I'll do maybe one or two more here. Okay, let's talk about this right quick. That's enough DC stuff. All right, so as some of you may have heard, so comic book writer Mark Millar uh, earlier this week announced some ideas he had to help turn the comic book industry around. This is from Bounding into Comics. Mark Millar claims comic book industry is in the worst state it's ever been. Oh no, man, sales are great. Sales are great, dude. You're totally off. Just look at the sales. They're wonderful. No problem. Comics are great. Uh, Suggests comic book legends return to DC and Marvel in order to save it. Comic book writer Mark Millar, known for his Superman Red Sun, Civil War, Wanted, and Kingsman stories, recently posited that the comic book industry is in the worst state it's ever been in and proceeded to share his idea on how to save it. Okay, well, welcome to the alt-right pipeline, Mark. You're alt-right now because you think comics aren't selling. During an appearance on the Thinking Critical channel, Miller confirmed his previously announced return to DC for a Superman story, and then quickly segued into positing his idea that at least 20 comic book legends should return to both DC and Marvel to do at minimum 2-year runs in order to save the comic book industry. Miller stated, "There's something weird going on right now where I really feel like guys like me and guys who've worked in the industry for a while and been very lucky, had a lot of big books and everything. We've got to man the stations. I think everybody's got to come in and do a couple of projects and find an artist who's as good as you can possibly get and just do some killer run on something." And oh God, and they show and they well, I'll talk about this in a minute. This art here. This is from Civil War. This art. I'll talk about this in a minute. But as for why he believes these comic book legends should return, he explained it's because the industry is in the worst state it's ever been. He said, quote, "The retailers, they're struggling out there. They're dying. All my friends and retailers are saying it's never been, they've never known it as hard as this," unquote. Well, I mean, if they had sounded the alarm sooner, then maybe they wouldn't be in the fix they're in now, but they basically just drank the Kool-Aid for years. So this is I mean, they're not blameless here. Miller then further collaborated on his idea to bring comic book legends back. And I was like, okay, let's get Olivier Coipel and Pepe Larraz or whatever, and we go do a Captain America and a Wolverine run or something. Everybody's got to come back and 2 runs, and if 20 big name writers and 20 big name artists do that, you've got an amazing couple of years of comic books. We need to get something like that going again. You want to see some excitement at Marvel and DC again, I think. Reacting to Miller's proposition. I always want to say Millar, but yeah, it's Miller. Reacting to Miller's proposition, Ewell Carter, how do you say that? I don't even know. Ewell Carter, the proprietor of Fantastic Comics in Berkeley, California, suggested that either Mark Millar or Todd McFarlane write Spider-Man, explaining, quote, "Because that's the book it needs to be, of course, everybody knows that." Miller then went on to share his view that Marvel and DC need to do well in order to drive creator-owned success. Quote, "In reality, in the last 10 years, there hasn't been any real big blow up success in the creator owned world. Saga was probably the last one that went crazy. Things have done, they've done nicely, but Saga was the last time there was a phenomenon. I think Walking Dead prior to that. So, there's been a few, but the real success comes from the industry. And I'm not talking about as individuals, as creators. It comes from the industry when Marvel and DC are doing well, particularly Marvel. And again, people hate to hear this because you're making money for the man. Up uh you're showing it up a corporation. I don't know, maybe that's a British turn of phrase, I guess. I don't know. You're showing it up a corporation. But the honest truth is that creator-owned growth comes from Marvel and DC doing well. From there, Miller returned to his idea to save the industry and noted that the current output from the companies are just not good. Yeah, no shite. No kidding. Everybody needs to go back and do 1 or 2 projects, I think, and I'm going to try and get my friends to do this over the next couple of years, try and get some excitement going back at the companies. Obviously, there's some great books. There's 2 or 3 great books, I think, at DC right now, but you need 20 good books. There needs to be 20 great books, he stated. Miller continued, and you can go back and look at these other periods in history, look at the 90s, look at the 80s, look at the 60s. There were so many books that I couldn't afford to buy all the books I wanted, and nobody's in that position anymore. Yeah. Yeah, ain't that the truth? Yeah, nobody's saying, "Oh, I can't afford all the books I want." Oh, well, actually, maybe they can, but if they can, it's just because the books are all $5 a pop, not because they're good and they can't afford them. Everybody's like, "Yeah, there's only 2 things worth checking out." I want to see people in that position again where they're holding $20 in their hands, but they need 60 bucks for the good number of comics that come out that week. Miller is not the only one to suggest the comic book industry is struggling. Rod Lamberti, the owner of Rodman Comics in Ankeny, Iowa, revealed in a blog post at Bleeding Cool that his new comic sales are declining. He stated, "New comic sales here in the comic store are increasingly slowing down. The recent death of Miss Marvel and Amazing Spider Man was not a big deal at the store or anywhere else." Nobody cares. Lord Thaw says, "Yeah, 5.99. Oh, is it 5.99 for a typical comic now? Because I thought it was 4.99. God, yeah, they're just gouging people now. They're gouging the few remaining people to try and shore up their profits." DC Studios CEO James Gunn also informed Michael Rosenbaum earlier this year, quote, "I started out, I wanted to write comic books when I was younger. If I was writing comic books today, I'd probably be unhappy because so few people are reading comic books," unquote. As far as other ideas to try and rejuvenate interest in DC and Marvel, Jim Lee believes James Gunn can do that. He explained to The Hollywood Reporter, "It's amazing to have partners in Peter and James, particularly James. He was a comics fan growing up and knows our mythology inside out. And having that kind of ally in the live action space allows us to really leverage what he is doing and allow us to market and sell comic books to new readers," unquote. These are, quote, "these are people who are interested in his movies, his TV shows, and if they want to take a deep dive into these characters, he directs them to the comic books," he added. Okay. So, I mean, look, it's not a terrible idea, and I give Miller credit for at least trying, at least saying, "Hey, this is a problem. We need to fix this." But I mean, I don't think it's going to work for a couple of different reasons. One, I don't think DC and Marvel are going to pay these people what they would want, and that's just going to keep a lot of them away. And I think also that in so many cases they've alienated people, particularly their customers. So even if you do some of this, you're not going to bring back all the customers you lost. You'll bring back a percentage of them, but how much? I don't know, 60% maybe. I mean, I don't know if that's going to be enough. And yeah, I don't think this would is going to work. And that's if he can even get people to do it, because part of the reason so many creators left is because DC and Marvel are paying so poorly now, they can go to Substack or, do Kickstarters or whatever and make significantly more money doing that. Just look at what people like Ethan Van Sciver and John Malin, guys like that have done. But one thing I wanted to talk about, and Mark Miller, I'm back hot and cold on Mark Miller. He's done some things I thought were pretty good and that I liked. He's done some stuff that I have absolutely hated. And then he's done some stuff that I was kind of like, it's okay. Like, I recently read, he's doing this big crossover with all these properties that he created. Big Game is what this thing's called. And it's got Wanted Dead or Alive and Nemesis and a bunch of other stuff in it. And I recently read the first Nemesis series. And it was, I mean, it was okay. I didn't love it. There were some interesting ideas, But that's just kind of an example of some of the stuff I thought was okay. But one thing I really hated was Civil War. And Civil War, I had already kind of checked out on Marvel around 2003, I believe it was. I was, just like a from again from probably around 1973 or so. From around 73 up to about 2003, I was reading comics. I actually didn't probably start reading Marvel until probably around 76, I think it was. But from that point on, I read Marvel constantly. There wasn't a month went by I didn't read a Marvel comic. And as we got towards the end of the 90s, I was partly because of finances and partly for other reasons, I was just kind of getting bored with a lot of comics. I had really cut back on the amount of comics I was reading. And I think after 2003, long story short, I read a issue of Captain America that was so ridiculously like left wing. I was like, what the hell is this? And it was around that time that George Perez, about the only Marvel book I was reading at that point was Avengers. And it had Kurt Busiek and George Perez on it. And then George Perez had announced, he had diabetes, his problems with diabetes, and that he simply couldn't keep up a regular monthly schedule anymore. So he left the book. And then Alan Davis came on to finish that story. They were doing a story with Kang, the Conqueror at the time. And after that was done, I basically dropped Marvel and didn't read any Marvel for several years, from 2003 up to 2007, I guess, when Civil War came out. And then I got swept up in the hype of Civil War. I basically, it sucked me in. So I was like, okay, I'll get this. And I started buying Civil War. And right from the start, I didn't like it because it was just Cap was acting like an idiot. Cap was just being like just being like just generally just kind of a hole for no reason. But what really put me over the top was this right here, this page. So to give some setup, so Captain America becomes an outlaw. Basically in Civil War, you've got the heroes break up into two camps. One that is allied with the government that wants to regulate superheroes, led by Iron Man, and then another group that's opposed to this registration and regulation by the government. Get out of here. I've got some kind of pop up coming up here. Uh, okay. And another group led by Captain America. So around, I think this is in the fifth issue. They're approached by the Punisher. Because, of course, the Punisher, he's no fan of like the law and the government and everything. And he had been kind of like tailing them and staking them out for a while. So he finally approaches them and says, hey, I want to join up with you guys. And of course, the Punisher is a friggin', mass murderer. So a lot of the heroes are like, no, no way, we can't take this guy. And at the time they had this task, they needed to infiltrate this installation to get like security codes to get into the prison where they were keeping all the other heroes that the government had captured. And so Punisher said, well, I can do that, to prove my loyalty or to prove myself. I'll get in there and I'll get like the security codes you need or whatever. And Captain America was kind of unequivocal. He was like, well, we'll see or whatever. So anyway, he goes, gets the codes, comes back. And so then they start having a discussion about whether they're going to let him into the group or not. Now, while they're doing this, a couple of complete like Bush League villains come in. One of them was, oh yeah, it's Goldbug and the Plunderer. So, I mean, they're like nobodies. They're like complete Z-list villains nobody cares about, and it's not like they're a big menace. It's not like they're Doctor Doom or Magneto. It's not like they've killed a lot of people or something. And they say, hey, we want to join up too, because we're not crazy about this government control either. And before they can even finish their sentence, the Punisher whips out a couple of Uzis and shoots them dead on the spot. And then, of course, he's like, what? You know, because he's like somehow surprised that the superheroes are like dismayed that he just murdered a couple of people in cold blood. So Captain America goes berserk and like beats the crap out of him. And then they let him go. They just let him, they basically kick him out of the honeycomb hideout and let him leave. And that's it. That's the last, that's all they do. You know, so he murders two people in a room full of quote unquote heroes. And his punishment basically is they break his nose and then kick him out. You know, they don't turn him over to the police. You know, they don't do anything. And I was just like, what the hell? You know, what the hell? What is going on? And I mean, it made me furious. It made me so angry. And it was particularly galling because the way the story was being crafted, you had Captain America, of course, leading this team. And Captain America and Spider Man are kind of like the moral yardsticks for DC, just like over at, I'm sorry, for Marvel. Over at DC, it's like Superman, Wonder Woman, maybe Batman. But over at Marvel, it's Spider-Man and Captain America, I think, principally. And of course, they're both on this team. So the obvious implication is that these are the ones in the right. You know, they're the good guys and the ones doing the right thing. And yet they basically let a guy commit two murders and they do absolutely jack about it. And I was just so pissed off. And of course, I'm sure what what the excuse would be is that, well, they're outlaws right now, so they can't turn them over to the police because then they'd be arrested. And that is 100% bullshit, because Spider-Man was framed for killing, you know, Gwen Stacy's father, Captain Stacy, right? He was framed for that. And he spent probably about 8 years basically as a fugitive on the run from the law. He was a cop killer. You know, they believed he was a cop killer. That didn't stop him from catching criminals. He did it anyway, you know, because with great power comes great responsibility, right? But no, not so much anymore. Now someone murders two people in front of you. Well, yeah, we could catch him and turn him over to the cops, but you know, that would be a real inconvenience. So let's just let him leave. And I was done with Marvel after that. I didn't buy what, let me see, this was what, 2007? And I bought back issues and I bought some trade paperbacks, like used. I didn't buy them brand new. And that was all I really bought from Marvel from what, 2007 to what, for about a decade. Anyway, that's enough of that. I need to get that off my chest because I saw this panel. Yeah, I saw these pages and I was just like, oh, it's just, I can't believe it's like waving a red cape at me. I'm just gonna get pissed off. Okay. Anyway, I've been going on over an hour now, so I will go ahead and wrap it up here. And again, I want to thank everyone who's listened to the stream and who will listen on the rewatch. If you haven't subbed to my channel, please do while you're here. I would appreciate it. And as I mentioned at the beginning of my stream, and I'll mention again, have done a video talking about the forthcoming Babylon 5 reboot, and just what I think the reboot might involve and what I think we can expect from it. And this isn't the animated movie that just came out. I've already done a review for that. This is actually the full reboot series that J. Michael Straczynski is working on. It looks like that's got about another hour left to upload, so hopefully that'll be up later tonight, and I hope you will look out for that and check it out. Lord Thoth, my friend, good night. Thank you for stopping by. Always appreciate it when you stop by to listen. And I will see you all. Well, let me see. Wait, do I have drill next week? No, I don't. So yeah, I'll be streaming next week. I'll see you all then. And until then, have a good night.